Everyone, welcome to episode number 26 of the Lift Free and Diet Hard podcast. I'm your host, Andrew Coates. And I have a confession. I almost didn't have a podcast for you guys this week. I shouldn't have to, I don't have to apologize because here we are. And thankfully, my good friend Robert Linkul was kind enough to be able to jump on. I had a very busy week of a lot of stuff I was juggling. And with the uncertainty of whether or not our gyms are going to reopen or not, I was kind of stringing it on scheduling someone. But as it turns out, we're not reopened yet. So, and Robert was free today. So it's one of my favorite people to get to talk to. And we've been intending on having him back for a while now. So welcome back, my friend. How have you been?
I'm great, my man. Thank you for having me.
So you and I have chatted a little bit here and there. We've both been busy. You definitely had some changes in your world. But, I had a bunch of stuff I actually did want to ask you about. But I suppose, first of all, this has been a challenging year for a lot of people. And I don't want to jam too much on, oh God, the pandemic and all this sort of stuff. But, it was challenging for you because you are in California. And California, as we've heard in the news, is one of the places that has had the most stringent and enduring lockdowns of fitness facilities.
Yeah.
So I guess one of the things we can go into there is, how did you come out the other side of this, strong going forward? And what did you have to deal with?
Big pivot. We like love and hate that word all at the same time because we kept doing it, and that was like one of the token words. We're all in this together. We got to pivot. We got all those key little phrases. But it's true. Like we had 7 shutdowns and restarts from March until November. And in November was the official, the 7th last one that we could maintain, and the one that we're still in now. And basically after the 6th, my wife and I were like, look, if we get shut down again, that's going to be it. We're not going to be able to. For 9 months, we'd been digging, or 7 months at the time, we'd been kind of digging a hole financially because we couldn't have people in. We were doing online training, but we could only do so much. The majority of our clients are older adults, and not all of them were digging going online with us. So we did the best we could, but for 6-7 months, just digging, going deeper and deeper. And we said, if we get shut down again, because we'd been reopened and we were allowed up to like 5 people in the studio. We normally have about 8. So we were like, all right, we can make it. And then we got shut down, and they said, yeah, it's going to be like 3 months. And that was it. So we didn't really get a whole lot of support from our landlord, and we had to close the studio. So in the process, while doing that, we were like, our other business, trainingtheolderadult.com, TOA, we were launching a studio here to record in. And we thought, well, this is going to become home base now. So let's make it a fully functional gym, full studio. And we had already had a business license in this space for about a year already. I'd done a little bit of training out of here just for fun, neighbors and such. And everything else was online education. So we made 100% commitment into this. And we are about 80% business online. And the other 20 are clients that we see here in person, and other trainers that I mentor here in person from neighboring gyms and cities. So it was a very challenging year, heartbreaking to close our gym. I did it on my birthday, on my 40th birthday. We had to pull the trigger. I didn't want to wait any longer. I had gotten sick. I had COVID. I had issues. We had to get over with that. We had all of this down energy and all this shit. We were just like, how are we going to get out of this? And literally the next day, I got a full night of sleep, and I felt great. And we had clients, start signing up, and I had new people in the area started signing up. We launched a new level of our TOA, a membership site that I've been wanting to do forever. Instead of just little individual webinars, it was a full, like a monthly membership. Every week we meet, launched that. We got new people to sign up, and it was just a breath of fresh air. I get to exercise every day now. I get to spend more time with my little ones and with my wife, and I'm home almost all day. And it's been to say reinvented or reborn or rejuvenated. Like, I don't think I would have gotten here without it. So in a way, it was a beautiful thing. It was a beautifully terrible thing that we kind of went through, and we're here, and I'm, we're not making nearly as much of an income as we were before. I'm hoping that will come back. I think it will, but I'm really happy. I'm happy with what I'm doing. I'm ecstatic about it actually every day. Like, I truly look forward to it. So sorry to keep rumbling on and on here, but it's been, and it's nice to talk about it. It's nice to share it because things were so down and so dark for a little bit there. To kind of get to where we are now, it feels really good. And when I get to share the story, I hear from a lot of other people that they go, I'm in a similar spot and I'm worried to make that decision, or, and I get it. I just want to be able to be a voice for people and have and an ear for people too, to want to share their stories and discuss things like that and lend some advice as best I can, having been there. But yeah, I don't know if there's anywhere that's been more business wise, maybe Los Angeles, that's really been restricted and just overseen way above the abuse of real power. I mean, it just a massive abuse of it, in my opinion. And we could talk about that too if you want, but
Well, I generally stay away from the political stuff, and
I got
I
you. I
will
got
conclude with this and that we've seen differences in different jurisdictions. We're in our second whatever lockdown sort of thing it is, and while most everything else has been reopened, gyms seem to get lumped in with restaurants, which also get an unfair deal, in with bars and other things that are, you know, parts of society don't seem to value as much as a part does. Another big part tends to look at it and say, well, that's a, I think the mentality is that they look at the type of stereotypical superficial examples of, I had a popular post on social media, the bros in stringer tees. Well, two things. One, those bros, I got a lot of friends in that realm. They actually do this for their mental health more than you realize. And for the most part, there's bad examples, but there's a lot of really good people in that realm too. But two, and this is something that I think our industry needs to do a lot better, is showcase and humanize the people that are affected by this. Anyone who watches my social media sees Larry as a good example, right? Larry just trained with me. I literally just finished up with him in my basement gym, and Larry's going strong and keeping him healthy, for his physical and his mental health. And we have so many people, coaches and just our clientele, and people who just are gym members that we see all the time, who are really struggling right now. And okay, what's the answer? Well, we need to set a better example as an industry. One of the things I'm passionate about is helping our trainers, coaches, everybody grow media reach. I'm tired of seeing people complain about what's wrong with our industry, and I'm really tired of seeing coaches malign other aspects of our industry. Sure, the waist trainer people, whatever, that stuff exists, fine. But if we're always spending our time pointing fingers at the bad side of it, what do people hear? They're kept aware of all the bad stuff. And I want all of us to take very seriously being better individual examples, support your friends in the community and the people that you believe are doing a really amazing job. This podcast is one of my vehicles to do that. And if you're frustrated because someone else, quote, bad influencer type, is sharing bad information, well, what are you doing to grow reach and build brand and create media and content that inspires more people, gets more people to pay attention to you? And I put that into effect last year. And anybody who's been watching saw me take a following from under 3,000 in the space of a year. And just by the end of January, I'm almost at 12,000 followers. And guess what? That will continue, and I will continue to grow it. And recently, as much as I will be cheeky about, quote, business coaches in our realm, but at the same time, I'm trying not to, spend too much time maligning them. I recently had a post where I shared a bunch of good examples of people I think are great mentors, but I've opened up a limited mentorship one-on-one basis for coaches who are interested in the things that I am particularly skilled at. And so when I just put it up at a couple of Instagram stories, I got a lot of interest. So if anyone is interested, you're more than welcome to message me and ask questions. I'm going to cap it very, very soon. It'll be capped at 10 people. And then there won't be a lot of it on my media. I don't want to pivot fully into that. But back to my main point, we individually and collectively have a responsibility to get out there and compete with Jillian Michaels and the influencer types that frustrate you all. And if you're struggling with the skills of developing social media or other aspects of reaching more people. Well, it's time we started working on that stuff. And this is one of the reasons why I like, talking to you. And the thing I want to pivot into is, you are renowned in our space as the guy who is the person who trains older adults, right? You're the specialist in that realm. You're great at it. So trainers going forward have to think a lot about what's financially viable for them, where they can make the greatest impact, what they're passionate about doing. I train clients across a general population spectrum, from young athletes to some older adults. And again, Larry is just one of my older adults, and he's a joy. And well, let's let you share why older adults are a great population for trainers to work with, and why it's important coming out of the last year to focus in that space. And we'll just let you go wherever you want with this, some tools or philosophy behind being a better coach to serve that demographic.
Well, first thing, Larry, as soon as you were texting me about getting on here, and you're like, "Oh, I gotta train Larry first before," and as soon as I saw that, I saw him in my head. And like, part of our relationship as trainers is people start to get to know our clients via our posts and our highlights. And I love it that you always, you, or not always, but often tag me in his post when he gets a new lift or something, because I'm proud of you for the way that you coach him and progress him, and the efforts you put in to keep him strong. And that leads into your question of what should be people being focused on coming out of this. I put up a post. I think it's been my most popular post ever that I've put up, about a recent study that was done from May into June of 2020. And so what had occurred was, it was a retirement home. They had about 40, 70 to 79-year-old individuals that they put in this group. They all had step count speedometers on them. Prior to this, they were averaging 6,000 steps a day. The pandemic hits, their facility has COVID tests in it. So they have to go on a lockdown for 14 days. Nobody can go anywhere. Their average step count drops to 1,500, so a 75% decrease. Their strength outputs that they tested with their strength coach and their people in their facility, all their strength percentages and their strength outputs dropped by 4%, or excuse me, by 8%. And their overall fat-free body mass decreased by 4%. So they shrunk big time. We're talking about early onset of atrophy to true atrophy to early onset sarcopenia. We've actually shrunk the muscle to the point where the function of its ability has been decreased. Cannot produce strength like it did before. Definitely cannot produce power like it did before. And this was after 14 days. For the next 2 weeks, once they reopened and allowed everybody back to the weight room, they tried their best to get everyone back to where they were in 14 days and failed miserably, they said. So the point was, when we take breaks in these bouts of time where we're off for 14 days or so, the body becomes very vulnerable to losing its muscle mass. And in the lapsed time to build it back takes twofold, maybe even threefold, to get back to where we were. So at the time that I posted this, it had been 309 days since we've been closed in the state of California. So think of all the trainers out there working with their clients, all the individuals that were going to the gym that have not, that exceeded their 14 days, and they're now 7.5 months or 8 months, whatever it's now. Imagine where we're at with that. So all you trainers out there and you folks out there are thinking, are we going to come back? Are we going to, well, I'll tell you one thing, you got a fuckload of business sitting out there waiting for you. You got people that need you bad. They need you bad. And if you're able to position yourself in front of them and let them know that you've got the goods, you've got the skills that will help them come back. When you have the ability and you have the strength, and then over these 9-10 months, you've lost it, you see yourself weakening, people want to get back into shape. Through those 7 shutdowns that we had, every time we got to reopen, we actually had a boost in business. The last one, we had a 14% increase in 2 weeks. John and I both had 4 or 5 new clients. I mean, we had people that were dying to get back in. So yes, you're going to have a great opportunity. Yes, you've got people that really are going to need your help, and not only mentally, but physically. There's great research to support the physical loss, but also the cognitive component to this, and the mental well-being, the state of mind, moods, the social environments. Especially older populations, they go to the grocery store, they go home, and they go to their gym environment, and they don't have work. They don't have a social place to get to hang out with people. The gym, in many cases, is it. So now that's been removed, right? So we try our best to connect with people online, but people will return to in person. They will want that. They will need it. And you're going to be there. We had, as our buddy Jonathan Goodman put out, and who's doing great research. The only reason our industry has any numbers to support is thanks to him. 480,000 fitness professionals are out of work. You look at, as far as I know, for the U.S., we had 280,000 reported personal trainers via the IRS in 2019. And another 400,000 fitness instructors, group exercise instructors, something along those lines. So you're looking at 700,000 people, maybe a little more, and we just lost 480. I mean, 2/3 of the field's gone. So only the strong are surviving. And if they're going to come back, all those folks want someone to work with. We're here.
I just read Dean Somerset just wrote an article today, and it was related to coming back out the other side of this and managing it. And he did mention in there that he does believe that group exercise will be slower to return, and I think we have to consider that to be the reality. He said that you probably won't see group fitness take off until you start seeing people going to larger events like concerts and sports events, which will eventually come. So there is the opportunity within, individualized training. And I've always been a big, one-on-one type trainer. When the industry was sort of getting excited about, what the fuck was, my brain is not functioning. Remember the word semi-private. Thank you. Where you have like 3 or 4 people in the same space. You're running around between them. They're all doing different programs. The thought of doing that, I'm just like, nah, I understand the financial incentive to do it, but to me, it sounds like overwhelmingly mentally and physically tiring just to run between groups after groups after groups without the individualized attention and relationship that I think we often thrive on. So I think, I know you have traditionally had a model where you have a number of people on the same thing, but they're all doing something that's more or less together. So there's a sense of group and community. Where semi-private, it's still kind of individualized depending on how you conduct it. But I digress. I think one of the most important things in all this, you mentioned, first of all, the mental health aspect of it. And you mentioned that people will come back. Humans are by and large social creatures, aside from the introverts who like being invited to things just so they can say no to everything. The human population likes being around other people. And the strength of your relationships is probably one of the reasons why anyone listening here is still in the game, both because you enjoy it, but those relationships are what keeps clients coming back to you. So people will crave that. They're going to want to be in that environment. I remember when we reopened after our first lockdown. So I, like you, pivoted. I set up a home gym as quickly as I could. I worked out of it the entire time, had access to a little over half my clientele, but most of the rest surged back when the gyms reopened, and I had a big surge in new business. Great. Had an amazing year. I just have 2 inquiries today about training with me, and we're still in a lockdown. I'm able to train out of my home. So that's been okay, been managing fine. But one of the most important things in all this stuff is the demographic of older adults on average has more financial resources to pay you to train with you, right? So, I mean, I have Larry who's 70, and I have another retiree, Neil, who's 70 as well. And Neil's a retired lawyer. And guess what? They've managed and set themselves up to the point where they can very comfortably come and see me multiple times a week. They prefer to have my company interact with me and make sure that they're safe and consistent and accountable. They like that, right? Your average 22-year-old client probably can't train with you multiple times a week, for years on end. So, and a lot of us, bleeding hearts want to like help people and all that good stuff. And sure, that's a part of the stuff. But at the same time, there's nothing wrong with being financially stable, secure as we work within our business. And there's no pension plan with what we do. So we have to build and earn and save and set up our financial well-being so that way we're really well taken care of long-term as well, right? So there's nothing dishonorable about charging your worth and attracting clientele that are able to pay what you're worth, okay? So you can figure out ways to give back to the community and do other things, but maybe, I don't know if it's charitable or pro bono or like stuff, people who are vulnerable, But ultimately, you are best off focusing in demographics that you will provide the greatest benefit, and also who have the financial resources to pay you what you're worth. And older adults are the best example of that.
I agree 100%. Yeah, there's very good research to support that as well. 60 to 79, I think, is the biggest demographic in our market that has recreational funding available, is how they kind of rate that they will invest into their health hundreds of dollars. I have clients that spend 600 a month to train with me. I have clients that spend 200 a month to train with me. But you got to come twice a week. You got to give me your all when you're here. We're not doing arms and legs day. I'm training you full body. Like the bodybuilder program design is called that because it's for bodybuilding. And when we're looking at a functional approach for older populations, I got to train their full body every day because that's how they're using it, right? You and I are talking about, I'm trying to get some bigger arms on me to match my thighs. And so I'm going to have a day or two a week where I'm just going to do my arms, but that's the target and the design of what I'm creating. I get clients that come in that can't perform the ADLs. They can't bathe themselves, dress themselves, move and carry groceries, get up and down off the floor. They can't articulate their hands well. They have arthritis. They have neuropathy. They have sarcopenia. They have osteoporosis. They have osteoarthritis. They have high cholesterol, you name it. Check, 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 check. Arm day isn't cutting it for them, right? So we need to be able to train that functional ability and that functional path. And when you learn how to design programming that way, when you learn very specific techniques on how to develop and train someone who can't sit to parallel and get up. They just can't do it. So how do you get them there? There's no chance they get on the floor. They're getting up on their own. How do you coach them from that? Their arms are frozen. They can't get their arms over their head. When you learn all those things, you absolutely charge what you are worth because you have now developed a new skill set and you're able to work with a demographic that most trainers can't. Most of them are very nervous and very scared to work with older pops. They don't know what to do with them and they're afraid they're going to hurt them. So they end up doing the machines or they end up sitting them down and doing stuff. And where do they spend most of their day? Sitting down doing stuff. So it's like we have to train. We have a new term that we've incorporated in long-term functional development. LTAD, long-term athletic development. Buddy Rick Howard works with the NSCA. He's also a professor on East Coast at like 4 different colleges. He's one of the smartest guys. He's a strong man, literally does strongman. He's a great dude. And he's the chairman of the special interest group for the LTAD program. And he called me and he goes, hey, we were looking at this model and we have this long-term athletic development where everybody feels like it ends at 24 whenever you graduate college. And if you get to go into the pros, maybe it lasts until 30 or 35. If you're Tom Brady, it's 45 or whatnot. And then that's it for athleticism. And he's like, you're halfway. You got another 45 years to go. Why do we have to stop being athletic? And so I get to help him kind of develop the other end of this, the full long-term athletic development transitions from athletic development to functional development on the other end. Keeping functional, keeping independent, those are the big fears. I don't want to fall. I don't want to have someone else take care of me. I don't want to lose my independence. I want to keep thriving and doing things on my own. And it's a difficult demographic to work with in terms that you got to show that what they're investing in is paying off, that it's working. And if you don't know how to do it, you're just spinning wheels and hurting your reputation, right? But when you learn how to do it right and you really truly get to affect people in a positive way, change their life, change their quality of life, and prove that, there's no better feeling, in my opinion. And I've been in those situations. I've been there where someone else had to take care of me. So to get out of that and to help others, it's fantastic. But I'm very long answer to your comment is when you have that skill set, you absolutely have to charge for it. And when we got a lot of people who have either gotten sick and now they've seen the light, they almost went into it and now they're like, God, I got to make changes here. Something's got to change. I got to get strong. I got to get, if this comes around again, I don't want to get taken, and they're ready. They're ready to commit. You got to be prepped for that.
You had something very important there, and you're going to see that across all the general population, right? Especially people who are, quote, obese, or certainly having a bit more weight, or they've been trending in an quote unhealthy direction, and the last year of relative inactivity and gain a few pounds. There's going to be a lot of motivated people out there. Now, there will be people who will never leave their house again. There will be
Yeah.
some of those. There will be
Oh,
people who will be fully encased in these bubble, dome things that you see on social media. There will be that little part of the population. They are going to live terrified of everything, but they're not the ones who are probably going to be able to help. The people we're going to help are the ones who realize, okay, well, this sucked. This last year, it'll probably be a year and a half before we really are back to some true semblance of normalcy. You get walk around in public and see unmasked faces again, and people are going to be craving that. So the demand will be there. I'm not even worried about that. Now, you you're also someone who deals with a lot of people in various different stages of ability, like physical decline, sure. You made me think of one of the trainers who's doing my mentorship. Her name is Frankie Perazzola, and I told Frankie to actually follow you, Robert. Uh, but Frankie has what's called, oh God, I'm trying to Friedrich's ataxia, right? So that's I don't think I could do it justice to explain, but it's a degenerative muscular disorder where you basically lose a lot of motor function, where
hmm.
people are often confined to wheelchairs and whatnot, and earlier on in life, right? So think of it as it's not exactly like multiple sclerosis, but it's definitely like multiple sclerosis on super steroids in terms of what it will ultimately do.
Oh, wow.
But Frankie's got a great attitude, and she focuses on educating and coaching people with, similar disorders or other motor issues that result in decline over time. She's very, very smart and skilled in that realm. And she also does focus on older adults, because older adults kind of fall under that same sort of heading.
Sure.
And these people are out there. So you can have those specialized skills, highly specialized skills. Something that overlaps with it too would be areas where, like, someone like a Dean Somerset would be very skilled, where you deal with people who have lower back issues, hip issues, whatever, like injuries. Like, you've yourself accumulated some pretty significant injuries over time. You've had both hips replaced, right? You had a lung removed. There's a bunch of stuff in there, right? So, and if anybody wants to get into more of that stuff, I know we talked a bit more about that when you were on, when
For
you
you.
used to co-host with me.
Yeah.
But actually, I guess his wife is going to be induced there. The baby is overdue and will be induced this weekend, if not
All right. Congratulations, my man.
with that, right?
That's cool. Good for him.
But okay, so I'll bring this all back together because I'm rambling a little bit. I've had too much coffee. There are going to be older adults who are very, very capable, move extremely well. I'm kind of lucky in that. Larry and my other client, Neil, very much in that boat. They're almost no limitations. And if anyone's seen Larry lift, Larry outlifts most of you guys listening, right? The shit that he can do is pretty ridiculous.
Very strong.
But within those age groups and categories, you're also going to see a lot of people who have various different issues. They're still fairly capable. They're still fairly resilient, and they will remain resilient and get stronger if you do smart, basic stuff. Get them moving around on the ground, basic movement patterns, learn their individual issues, injuries, limitations, just like you would with any other client. That's a skill set you should have established. But if you want to dive more into this stuff, this is why I bring you on here. I want them to plug into your work, because you have then specialized advanced knowledge in that realm. But you also don't need to have all of that specialized knowledge to start and to work with people in that population. If you then realize, okay, you're banging up against your limits here, and you've got clientele who have needs beyond your current skill set, well, you don't have to hand those clients off. You should expand that skill set, and then you can turn around and market yourself as someone with that. So that's why I really encourage people to check out more of the stuff you're doing. Contact you, reach out directly, message you, and begin that process. But it doesn't mean that someone has to have the ability to deal with someone in advanced stages of arthritis, or incredibly limited, or any of these more extreme things that I know you have a lot of experience with, before you can take on a client who's 65 years old, who still moves really well. And like, again, like my guys, like Larry and Neil, they both squat really bloody well. They both squat two parallel with straight spines. They move great. And not everybody retains that, but a lot of people do. So I also don't treat them like they're broken or dysfunctional. They like lifting as heavy as they can go, Larry especially. And he has a lot of fun with it. And he'd be really fucking pissed off at me if I ever went easy on him.
Well, there's biological aging and there's chronological aging, right? And so we need to look at everybody biologically and just stop looking at these numbers that go next to the name. Because yeah, Larry would, if you took Larry in and you're like, oh, you're how old is he? 71?
He's 70.
70. So you plug him into silver sneakers, he's gonna laugh at you, right? You're like, what are we doing here? Where you're gonna have other individuals that come into silver sneakers and go, this is hard, right? It's a biological skill, it's a biological ability of where you're at. And I'm not dissing silver sneakers, it's just a different level, it's a different focus of where we're at. So you're completely right. You need to look at movement patterns and break them down as components. We hinge, we squat, we push, we pull, we reach, we contralateral, we ipsilateral, right? We twist, we get up and down off the floor. There's your training program. You pick one of each of those, train it every day. It doesn't have to be fancy. Where some of the more specific skills come in is when you have people that have decreased ranges of motion, decreased function, and you're like, well, how do I get it back? That's where some continued education comes in, because you don't know the tools, you don't know the progressions or the ways. And if we can't, the way that I like to look at it is like, if I can't get someone to squat to parallel, how, if they're stable enough and they're able, but as soon as we try to do that function, they can't perform it. How are we ever going to do that without doing it, right? So we've basically reduced ourselves down to a body weight squat, and we can't reduce it anymore. Or can we? Can we deload people? Absolutely. You band them up, you give them some supports, you give them some stabilities, and you allow them to get lighter, and you train that range. So now they can actually do it. It's just with less than their body weight, right? And there's techniques to this. It's overloading, underloading, high banding, low banding. I mean, there are great techniques to help people there. But in the very beginning, you got to just get people going, get them moving. You don't need to overthink it. You need to be safe. Understand that the adaptation phase is probably going to be twice as long as somebody in their 20s and 30s. So take it easy. Their RPE is going to be 4 or 5 points, higher. Their delayed onset of muscle soreness is going to be less delayed and a little bit more violent, right? Like there are little things that you're going to need to understand the next day. They're going to be mad at you because they can't touch their toes because their hammies are so tight, like that kind of stuff. We have these grace periods, and they're just longer with the older adult because the system is on a slight decline. But the more that we do to help, we're flattening that curve a little bit. It's always going to be going downhill. We can't fix that yet. We just don't want it to be so dramatic, right? So I completely agree with you. You guys shouldn't be concerned or afraid to work with older pops. Just know you got to back off a little bit. And if you do need direction, myself, there's a lot of other great trainers out there too that work with older populations. But I'm always happy and available to assist people if you ever need it.
And let's just think about some of the basics of training that would apply very, very well to older adults. I mean, two of my favorite things are farmers carries and sled pushing, right? Which I have access to at Evolve, not so much in my home facility, but I mean, if someone can't push a sled, we got some problems. They're probably not even suited to be in a gym, and they're way bigger concerns. Like sled pushing, really, really low impact, really, really high value in terms of strength. Each individual leg has to work on its own. It's very, very quote functional, great for cardiovascular stamina building. And then farmers carries. That's still a pretty practical thing. It's very easy to scale. You can start out someone very, very light if that's all they're capable of doing. And you scale them up if they're really strong. Larry loves it. We load him up pretty heavy and he's pretty sturdy. But for other people, yeah, you just start them out somewhere where they just like, maybe it's a pretty light kettlebell in one or both hands, and you see how they do with it. And for the most part, I find people really like that stuff too. So they want to return to it. They're tired when they're done it. And there's not a lot of people that can't do a landmine press. Maybe straight overhead for a lot of older adults might be a concern. Rotator cuff issues are more prevalent as we age. But landmine pressing usually is pretty safe. Okay, you get maybe a smaller woman who's not strong enough to do it the bar with one hand. Cool. Yeah. Put two hands around the bar, unloaded bar, great place to start. and worried about kneeling or different positions. Okay, cool. Well, yeah, you can. I definitely get them set up in kneeling position, but I just like standing up with a landmine and go from there. Right? That's the least aggressive angle for it. Okay, most people can sit down on a seated cable row or a pull down, and yes, like you said, we don't want to have them doing nothing but sitting down. But these are good ways that they can learn horizontal and pulling patterns. Most people can row on a TRX. There's no problem there. Do we put them under a barbell and let them bench press? Probably not, but some of them like that stuff. Most basic dumbbell work usually works pretty well for them too. You have a really cool assortment of stuff, and then you can get down on the ground, dead bugs and planks and various other things that crawls. Most people can manage a crawl, and we don't even think about getting them to do that sort of stuff. Like you said, the trainers are often afraid, and they will sit them down and put them on stuff like machines when in fact get them down to the fucking ground, right? Because they better be pretty good at getting up and down there. Again, fall resiliency, right? But anyway, I'm repeating stuff you said before. But again, there's just all these really fun, basic, useful things that you can do with almost anybody in any stage of ability, right? If someone can't push a sled, an unloaded sled, I think we're probably in a fair bit of trouble.
Yeah, I would agree. And I love everything you just said. Those are all pieces and components that I love to work with. And the best part of it is it's all got a functionality to it. Like our industry's kind of bastardized that word. And when I look at function, I'm thinking of its application to real life. And you look at exactly what we do through our days. We pick things up all day long. We move them somewhere else, and we take them off the ground. We put them up over here, and then we go and we sit down, and then we stand up, and then we're doing these actions that are simulating a lot of those movements that we just went through. And we want to create a change. We simulate those movements, but we produce an overload to it so the body will adapt. There's your SAID principle. Next thing you know, they're getting stronger and they're getting better, and now the things that weren't so hard to them before are a whole lot easier. But yeah, I completely agree. I love the even in smaller spaces and areas, you can create a lot of opportunity like that. I saw somebody doing a sled push like 4 steps because they didn't have a lot of room, but the sled was hooked to 2 rubber bands. And so they would push it, and then they would back pedal, and they would push it, and then back pedal and push it. And you saw a guy went like 4 times and he was toast, but he was only moving like 8 feet, 10 feet. I mean, you can create a lot of that stuff in small spaces. This is my 400 square foot space. I do have access to go outside, and we go out into my yard. I got about an acre of property out here that we can move around and we can throw things, but we toss stuff, we slam things, we heave things, we carry them. I've got tons of lever arms. You're completely right. Leverage ability, people's ability to lever a lever is great. It's twice as good as if it was just a single lever So there's awesome opportunities from deadlift variations and rowing movement patterns to pressing horizontally and then eventually overhead. I'm actually doing a webinar. I don't know when this airs, but I'm doing a webinar. Okay, so it is Tuesday at 11:30, and it's free. You can sign up for it from our website or from my social media, and it's I'm partnered with On Target Publications, the publishing company that Dave Draper and Lori Draper own, and they work with Dan John and produce all his books. They gave me an opportunity to do a webinar with them, and it's on movement patterns for the aging athlete. Not just the older adult, but the aging athlete. You want to keep doing dynamic and athletic and cool shit, but I want to find and teach you a way to do it that will reduce the higher impacts or the risk chances. 4 out of my 6 suggestions are lever based, and they're really great. I'm going to show you from beginning to end, and if you guys miss it because you're watching this, you can still sign up for it. It'll be available for the rest of the week and watch the recording for it. We have over 400 people already signed up for it. I'm super excited about that, and it should be a mind sparking opportunity. Where you see something and you're like, I can do something like that here. That's the whole idea. You don't have to do it exactly like this, right? But to give you an idea of how you can use some of this stuff with your people, because simple produces really good results. But when you can just modify it or critique it or mold it just a little bit, so you're not avoiding it being uncomfortable for a client, you're actually aiding it to be better for them so it won't be so uncomfortable. That's a thing. I got a hurt back. Well, let's avoid that back then. Let's do everything else. You're creating a bigger gap. You're doing them an injustice by forgetting the back. Let's leave it alone. We need to work with that limitation. So let me just find a slightly different way. How can I adjust this where you can push this sled? How can I manipulate this weight where you can lever this landmine, or you can pivot point and push this thing overhead? Like those are the expertise or the art components that come into being a trainer, where you personalize it for that person, and the next thing you know, they've made that next level of ability. You're now delivering a function and a level that is above any service they could ask for. It truly is life altering, and when you see that occur with somebody, I tell you, it's addicting. Like, I just want to keep helping people get better. It's super cool.
One of the other most important components of helping people get better is actually reaching them and having them find you. So I think that's probably something else that trainers are struggling with a little bit. And I'll throw this out there too, because obviously anyone listening to it the first week, Jonathan Goodman is offering his Getting Clients and Referrals book free on Amazon, the ebook version. So it's up on my social media. So, as long as you catch his episode, the first week it's released, I think it's available kind of, you're hearing this on a Tuesday if you got it day one up until Friday. And I've got a 9-page section of that book that John asked me to contribute to it. I love the book. I recently just reread it because I wanted the stuff in there top of mind, with the disruption and everything in the second shutdown and Christmas. I just like having certain concepts top of mind, so that way they're always ever present. And they always just sort of seem to manifest through, my actions, the way I interact with the world. But we want to give trainers the tools to reach these populations. So obviously, if we're thinking older adults, and this doesn't mean like 75 plus, I mean, you tend to kind of consider it almost like roughly like in that 55 plus range. So, and a lot of trainers now are, big into Instagram, which, we've talked about me being very present on. Now, there's definitely some older adults in the Instagram space, but what have you found, or what do you believe would be the best ways for trainers to market to these clientele? Because I know you never really set about building a huge Instagram following.
No, I actually have a bigger following. I'm at about 2,000 people right now on Instagram, but I've only been on Instagram for maybe a year. And the majority of the people that follow me on there are other trainers, where I have more general population, and maybe 8,000 people or so on Facebook. And Facebook's definitely been a better, I guess I'd say, avenue for me to seek out new business. And really, the best way that we do that is we highlight our current clientele. I would say that's the most beneficial thing that we do from a marketing standpoint. Is I say, guys, here's Andrew. When I started with him, he needed a knee replacement. He couldn't touch his toes. He couldn't sit to parallel. He couldn't do this. The surgery, here's video of him afterwards, a little bit better, still stiff, still a little pain. 6 months later, here he is now. Check him out. And we show these videos and these progressions and the postural changes, the personality, the change in the face and the presence, and then their ability to pick stuff up off the ground and squat and reach and press. And we just highlight their success and hit post. And there's nothing about, you could do it too, and 30% off, and you got to act now. And by the end, first 5, we don't do any of that. We just highlight it, and we tag the client in there. And in most cases, they're going to have someone in their circle. We call it the reach of 3, friends, family, and colleagues, they work with. Somewhere in that reach of 3, someone's going to have a bad knee, have a bad back, have something that, when we painted the picture of Andrew being a little bit unhappy and miserable and pre-surgery, they're like, that's where I'm at. But look where Andrew went, right? I want to do that. I want to be. And so you'll see comments like, man, I need to do that. Or Andrew, that's so great. I wish I could do it. That's a little help me, that's a little cry right there. And so I'll message and just be like, hey, I don't mean to be, DMing you here and trying to stir up business, but I saw your message. And I just want you to know, like, this is what I do. I am more than happy to assist if you need it. We do a free consultation and just kind of outline things a little. And I just say, if you're interested, great. If not, no worries. I don't want to be pushy. I want my product to speak for itself. I don't need to sit there and brag about it or try to convince or talk people into it. And if they have any concerns, our first sit down is free. And I'm okay with that. I know there's so many business coaches out there. You got to get paid for every minute. And like, I don't think so. My wife was watching this thing and she's like, would you buy a car that you don't get to test drive? Like they're showing these commercials, right? Where they're like, we got a new way how you buy a car. You get to keep it for 24 hours. That's still a sample. Even though I may have, signed the dotted line that it's mine, I could still return it in 24 hours. That's still a demo. That's a sample, right? People need to sample what you do before they say, yeah, here's $600, here's $400, whatever it is. They want to come in and see it. Am I going to like you? Do you know what you're talking about? Do I feel confident you know what to do with someone who needs a knee replacement? You know what I mean? I think so because I saw it online, but I want to make sure this works. And we're doing the same thing, Client coming in might be an asshole, and you sit down and you're like, this isn't going to work. They might be the coolest person ever. And you're like, absolutely. And 9 times out of 10, if they're referred or if they're led in by one of your current clients, they're probably going to be pretty cool. Rarely are they complete opposite. And you're like, oh, why did you send this guy? You know what I mean? It does happen, but the majority of the time, they don't want to muddy up waters that they live in. They don't bring bad attitudes and bad energy into their gym, into their trainer's life. They want to surround you, who they love, with someone who's going to contribute and help enrich. So I think I call that a referral generation, not a lead generation. I don't want leads. I want referrals. I want opportunities for my clients to reach out to their people more than just, hey, you can refer someone at any time. Great. Let's have an event. Let's have a social media post. Let's have a discussion. Let's have something that, an educational, a little 30-minute webinar on lower back care and keeping you from throwing your back out. And you post that and tag all your clients in it. Everyone's hurt their back. Everyone's thrown their back out, right? And you're teaching and helping your clients not do that. That connects with people. Those are referral generating opportunities. You can do it through social media. You can do it through emails, however you want to do it. But I think that's probably, in my opinion, the best way to reach. And when you talk to other experts, 90% of the time they're like, yeah, it's word of mouth referral generation, right? And but we spend all this money on all these marketing campaigns. It's kind of silly.
And this stuff works. So what you described is how I've basically been busy through all my social media for a decade by posting. Early on in my career, I posted a lot more like client videos, lifting on Facebook. I do less of that now. You get a bit of that on my Instagram, but that was really, really effective. And I used the phrase earlier, and I'll say it again, is top of mind marketing. So there's one of 2 kind of marketing principles. Jonathan Goodman actually writes about it in the book that I mentioned. So it's one of the things that he also talks about in his online trainer academy course too, which is, I'll plug it because it's good. I've done it. I really liked it a lot, right? Because obviously online training is pretty relevant right now. But it's not, the other principle is that ties in is Gary Vaynerchuk talks about jab, 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 right hook. And I've always believed in a ton of jabs, which is where you just put out free information, free content, helpful stuff. The right hook is asking for the sale. Well, I rarely ask for the sale on my media. Every once in a while, I'll throw it out there, like, hey, I am taking on clients. I have that, ability, blah, blah, blah. But if you do the hooks so infrequently and you throw a mountain of jabs, then you've earned the right to very easily slap in a hook here and there without anybody being annoyed. If you are on an email list and every single email is buy my program, you get kind of turned off by that stuff pretty quickly. If everybody's media is always asking for the buy, then you just kind of put that aside. It's too much pressure. It's annoying, right? So I don't like that particular approach. Again, like you said, there will be some of those business guru types who will tell you that, and they'll tell you have to constantly ask for the business. Well, I think that top of mind marketing, just constantly putting out really great information, will endear you to people. You'll be the person. This is something I've said for a very long time. You want to establish yourself as the go-to fitness professional in your general population following's minds. Your personal relationships, the people that you used to work with in old jobs, people you went to school with, that network that's on your Facebook as friends, that follows you on Instagram, those people overwhelmingly are not following the really well-known names of our industry. They may follow 1 or 2 other like sort of noteworthy people, right? But you're the person that they know who is sharing that fitness and nutrition information. And when that time comes when they realize they have a problem, you've been there showcasing the solution for a very long time, and you should be the person that they reach out to, or the person that they refer a family member or a coworker to, just like you said. And this stuff works. I've seen it work for a very long time. The problem with it is that you can't just put it into practice on day one and expect anything. You do need to be patient, and do need to commit to doing this for the long run as the way you present your media. And you need to just trust the process that over the long run, it will average out to help you. If you need 8 clients tomorrow to pay your mortgage, you're probably in trouble, but you got to ask yourself, what happened to put you in that position? Barring this year with COVID and everything that happened, I mean, a lot of people just got pushed in a bad spots, right? But I'm kind of hoping everybody listening here has been really aggressively working to pivot, refine their businesses, explore new opportunities, and survive it and thrive.
I agree.
All right, so I guess one last interesting thought that I've never talked about on here before, but again, considering the restrictions in California, and I don't want to make this one political per se, because I always avoid this stuff, but we are seeing trainers moving. We're seeing trainers move from, province to province. We're seeing, from state to state. I've got a friend who's, a couple of friends who are talking about going down to Florida. Now, Florida is one of the places with, like no state taxes. They've had the loosest restrictions, and COVID hasn't even all been very, very serious down there. Whereas California has kind of notably been one of the places that has gotten hit the hardest. We see Brett Contreras on his social media pack up his gym, openly complain about the taxes and the difficulty getting business permits and all this sort of stuff, and just saying, screw this, and he moved off to Vegas, right? So not everybody has the luxury. You have roots there, you have your family there, you have your home there. So do you have any thoughts about anything along those lines in terms of like the fact that did you at any point consider taking the family and moving them out of state, or what?
Yeah. Yeah, we still kind of do have a little mindset to that. The beauty, I guess, where we're at is our previous gym was in Sacramento County, where our home is in El Dorado County. El Dorado County, when you look at I would say business friendly COVID restrictions, is in the top 5 in the nation. And they were literally right next to each other. We live in this completely different world. You go around here and everyone wears masks, but all the businesses are open. Everybody's doing it, even against state orders. The second it came out, Newsom said this and this and this. Our sheriff would come out on social media and go, I'm not enforcing that. Keep your businesses open. I mean, it was just right in the face. And so the businesses that were here, they weren't as affected. They were shut down for 2 months, maybe 3 for some, and then they've been open since. And so it's been a lot better pending the county that you're in and the involvement. So I guess I would say, if you like, I really got to stay in California or in some of these other states that are more governed, see if you can find some different counties to work in. Or we were very in touch with our county. They all knew my name. They knew my business name. It ultimately did not work out all that well, but we got a lot of things done. We probably wouldn't have been open nearly as much as we were had we not been so involved, been so boisterous, insisting on inspections. Like, we wanted inspections. We were begging for them to come out and inspect us, see our UV lighting, see our alcohol dispensing gun that we have that we spray everything with, like, see how we've got everybody separated out, how none of us share equipment. Like, we wanted everyone to come. We wanted that stamp on the window that was like, you guys are doing shit right? And like, let us be the poster child gym. And so we got that opportunity quite a few times. Ultimately, it came down to the point where it was just, the governor said it's all got to stop, and county restriction came down. So I guess advice wise, yeah, if you have the opportunity, especially if you've moved your business online and you have the opportunity to move, Texas doesn't look bad. Idaho doesn't look bad. Like, Canada doesn't look bad. Like, there's lots of other options and some other things to do. Then I would say go for it. I don't know. I know I will never open another business in Sacramento County. I can tell you that. That was extremely difficult, and I will not return there.
And this
California's a tough state to be in, bro.
This stuff's relevant, and I think this is an important conversation that maybe people don't talk about, because the playing field is not level. And going
No,
forward, if you're thinking about
no,
opening a physical facility, there will be opportunities. You kind of have to know, unfortunately, the politics of your where you are. And Canada, not bad. Depends on where you are. Ontario has been way more drastic and aggressive with its lockdowns, yet they've had the worst of the spread there. Same thing with Quebec. I mean, and I don't want to get into a debate about lockdown per
yeah,
se. I am someone who fundamentally believes in, that someone's livelihood is important, and taking away from them without evidence to support the shutting down of everything, which none of the people making these decisions have been able to present, that gyms are fundamentally unsafe. Then yeah, sorry, lost my train of thought. But with Canada, at the very least, Alberta's not too bad. Like, people will complain about various aspects of how the governments run things, but in terms of like trying to support businesses, they've actually done one of the better jobs. Unfortunately, right now the gyms are arbitrarily just being kept closed as most everything else is open. And another thing that I've tried to say on social media, and I really think trainers should grab onto this: don't throw anyone else under the bus within our industry or in any other industry,
completely.
as our facilities are closed. Recently, and maybe some of them will listen, I saw a bunch of people I know were complaining that trainers were allowed to go into homes and train people, but one-on-one training in bigger studios wasn't. And a lot of these trainers that I like and respect, and a few I don't, were complaining about how that was unsafe. And it's like, you're not getting any traction or making things better by throwing other fitness professionals who are in just the same dire straits as you are under the bus. And I don't like this idea of people are complaining because our casinos were allowed to be open. Well, that's a straw man, because the table games were closed,
Mhm.
the slot machines are open, people are wearing masks, there's physical dividers, and there's still people working in casinos. And again, the table game people, I used to work at a casino. I was a professional poker dealer well over a decade ago, manager in a poker room, something that I spent almost 4 years doing. And I still work with clients today, multiple clients, and I have many over the years that I have relationships with because of being in that world too. And I don't think it's fair to take any industry, especially if you don't fully understand the environment of it, and to complain about it. I've seen people more recently complaining about, tattoo parlors or whatever. I know a lot of tattoo artists too, and they've been hurt by this stuff. So I think let's get out of the habit of, you know, as we try to explain how safe we can do our job, not making other industries or parts of our own industry look and sound unsafe. I don't think that's the answer. And I think complaining on social media is a complete waste of fucking time anyway. Like you said, talk to the governing officials, develop those relationships. My friends, uh, Colin and Allie DeWolf, they're down in Medicine Hat. And I know Allie listens to this for sure. They've been talking with the their like, I guess, local member of parliament. I can't remember the exact term here. And so they're just trying to do the best they can on that front. Another local trainer, gym owner, Jordan Jeski's been talking to officials in the government and doing the best he can. So
Yeah,
that's the stuff that's going to be constructive. So I really do think we have to focus our energies carefully. And I think just getting into that echo chamber of negativity on social media isn't the answer. I don't think it fixes anything. So
I completely agree with you. Yeah,
yeah, back
I've
to the whole idea of moving different states or what have you. Yeah, Canada, I mean, Alberta seems to be one of the better ones in the grand scheme of things. BC has actually handled it quite well too. Nova Scotia, I mean, 12 cases, shut the gyms down. Like, they've not really been, they've been a little overreactive with stuff too. So Canada's
Mhm.
not been perfect by any means, or safe from these decisions that can end up frustrating you. So there do seem to be like certain states in the U.S. that have handled it well. I get the impression Washington State seems to have been more evidence based, and I see Luca Hosvar's place is always open. Like you said, Florida seems to be good. Texas, for the most part, seems to be pretty good. New York early on restricted things, but I think that the gyms are allowed to operate there. So New York has seemed to be a bit more evidence based than everything. I know that the Massachusetts gyms got shut down. So it varies state by state. So I think it's just something you have to kind of know the lay of the land if you want to operate, or especially if you're planning on moving, because this might be life or death for your business at some point. God forbid, that the vaccine, I don't want to think of these terms, but maybe the vaccine isn't as effective as possible. Maybe some new variant that, like the UK variant, everybody gets stressed out, and the governments engage in more groupthink. And instead of actually, surgically dealing with this stuff, just decide, let's lock everything down again, right? Because they don't have a solution. Therefore, we have to feel like we're acting and doing something, which is my opinion of what the lockdowns actually are. So let's move off of politics and remind everybody where they can find you to find out more about training older adults.
trainingtheolderadult.com. That's our website there. You'll see all our information. We actually have a brand new course that we're teaching coming up on February 9th that is specific to online training for the older adult. And we start from how to do the consultation and the assessment online to the equipment and the kit they might need, and all the way through the training, and give you about 60 different exercises you can perform with your clients, just bands based, let alone all the ones you can add on if they have dumbbells. And all the way through a 12-week training program, or excuse me, an 8-week training program. So we have that coming up. I've got 4 or 5 other courses of full certification that we do, the TOA method from start to finish. It's a massive course. It's really great though. Some collective type stuff there. You can find me on Instagram, my name, Robert Linkul, same on Facebook and YouTube. I've got maybe 100 videos or so on YouTube, tons of information on there if you guys want, some from beginner all the way up to some pretty advanced techniques of working with older populations, how to get up and down off the floor, all the way to how to swing a kettlebell. So we've got them all on there. You guys feel free to check it out and always reach out. I'm more than happy to answer questions and point people in the right directions if I can.
Back to the principle of top of mind. You may be listening, and if you made it to the end of this, but go, okay, well, I'm not in a place right now with my clientele where I really want to do a deep dive into the more advanced stuff for older adults. Well, I would say have Robert on your social media, right? Follow him on Facebook and Instagram, because you'll see some of his stuff. And maybe in the future, you end up with a client referred to you who has these needs, and all of a sudden you decide, I need to know more about this. So keep Robert top of mind for his skill set. This is one of the things I like the most, is knowing who's out there in our space who has different skills and talents. So that way, when I need to refer a trainer who's looking for resources, I have, this person to send them to. And I've put a lot of people onto you specifically for your skill set, because you've done a good job of being an educator in that space. So you're a very, very close friend through the grander either of things. And so I have easiest time supporting you. So anyone listening, I really hope you hear the way that I said that, and go check out what Robert's doing. In the meantime, thank you again for tuning in and listening. I really appreciate the continued support. As long as you're not in the middle of driving right now, maybe consider taking the minute to give me a review on iTunes. That is very helpful. I appreciate it. And maybe share this episode, or an episode that you really enjoy, with someone in your world that you believe would really like it. If you know a trainer who works with older adults, make sure you share this episode specifically and Robert with that person. This is how we make our industry better, by sharing and supporting each other. Outside of that, if you have questions specific, reach out to me on Instagram. That is where I'm most accessible. I would love to hear from you guys. That's important to me. And hopefully, if everything goes according to plan, I should have a great episode about marketing and business success with Jill Coleman. Should be the next one up. So don't hold me to it, but if scheduling works, we're golden. Thank you for tuning in, Robert. I really appreciate this.